The other one was able to get Justin out to the ambulance, and Sergeant Steve Parker and Officer Jeff Shea of the Kalama Police Department, they were both honored with the State Medal of Honor as well, which is the highest award for a law enforcement officer in the state. Both of those gentlemen have since retired from Kalama Police here in the last year and moved on to other things, but they were able to be honored, which was really great. In October, then the next week after that, went back to Washington, D.C. with 12 members of the Dozier family. Chaplain Doug Fields of the chaplaincy and myself were able to go back there for some of the events. And due to they were honoring 2 years of fallen officers, and also included the COVID people in law enforcement died of COVID. So normally it's about 150 officers per year. Due to the COVID and the 2 years, they were honoring over 600 officers were honored in DC. And there's several events. One, there's a memorial wall there. There's a big museum that opened here in the last few years, a memorial where all the officers' names are inscribed, which is kind of a moving scene to be able to go there and see that. Two of the big events, one is the Candlelight Vigil, which is on the Capitol Mall between the Capitol and the Washington Monument. They did that one evening, and that was kind of neat. The Attorney General was there and spoke, and they read the names of all the officers. And then 2 days later, they had the memorial service, which was right in front of the White House, and had the president spoke at that event, and it was just an incredible sight. Officers from around the country. You're talking about like over 600 officers. So you had their families, members of their agencies, and officers from around the country, particularly the East Coast. It's a big deal. There was motorcycle officers, I think saw from Louisiana were up there, New York, New Jersey, and just thousands of law enforcement officers and family members. It was quite a moving scene, and Justin was honored at that event, and I was very honored to be there and have that happen, though it was belated. Next thing, just touch on the COVID situation a little bit. Lived through it, varying changes to our lives. I know of pressure from certain people. Some people wanted me to arrest Jay Inslee. Other people wanted me to arrest people not wearing masks, but decided to do neither. Myself, the local chiefs, and generally law enforcement throughout the state really took the approach. It was a health care situation. People needed to decide for themselves what they were doing. It's also impacted the court system. They really scaled back what they're doing. They have a huge backlog of cases they just haven't gotten to. They haven't had very few in-person trials, and that's going to take years probably for them to dig out from the backlog. And also our jail is part of this. They tried to limit the population in the jail. So even right now we have booking restrictions, both the jail staff and occupants of the jail of it. There's been some COVID outbreaks, so it's really limited what we could do. And in that context, bringing people into the criminal justice system for not wearing a mask didn't seem like a good idea at this point. It really was be a useless gesture, really, to do that, to go to that level. But there's a lot of challenges there we're still facing as a society from that, and certainly the criminal justice system is no exception. I think the one good thing, though, might learn is that courts have been able to do things on Zoom and different digital platforms. They've utilized that, and I think hopefully that can be used in the future to expedite a court process cheaper and more expeditiously deal with people's cases. One good thing, the Sheriff's Office, we stayed open throughout. We've not been closed. There was about a 2-month period where we scaled back our hours from, I think, 9 to 3. The Hall of Justice itself was, but that was it. We kept our doors open, and we're back to 8 to 5 every day and serving the public. And one of the big things we do is issue concealed pistol license to people. We have this in the works already to go to a digital platform, but we've implemented that so people can do address changes or renew their concealed pistol license from a computer, don't have to come into the office. And those that do, to get their initial one, have to be fingerprinted. They can do everything online. Or when they come into our office, we have tablets on our front counter. They can fill everything out, and really the only contact is get them fingerprinted. And pretty much that's, we just have a staff member coach them on how to do that on the fingerprints digital machine to do that. So we've been able to do that, and the numbers on concealed pistol license have just gone through the roof the last couple of years. We did, I think, 1,800 last year and ran about 1,500 this past year. So we've been able to, with this digital program, able to serve a lot of people that way, which has been great. In terms of our staffing, back in 2008, we lost some staff members, quite a few, and we've been kind of fighting ever since to get back to where we think we should be. And the commissioners approved 4 new deputies for us for 2022. And that brings us back to our 2008 levels for deputy staffing, or it will once we get people hired. So we have 4 people to hire that we're working on and trying to get up to speed. It's probably going to take us a year to get people fully hired and trained up, because if we hire somebody off the street today, it can take anywhere from 10 to 12 months to get them trained up where we put them out by themselves on the street. And we're playing catch up. In addition to the 4 new deputies, we've had 6 people retire since May of this year. My first almost 2.5 years, we only had 1 officer retire, and that time it was, many of you may know Charlie Rosenzweig, 41 years with the sheriff's office, and that was planned. He left, and we didn't have anybody else retire until May of this year. And then over the next 4 months, we had 6 people retire. They were eligible and based on their age and everything, and in many cases, it had to do with some of the new legislation and the new climate out there. You've got that retirement waiting there for you. It's kind of hard to put on the bulletproof vest and go out there, and they keep doing the job, and some of them opted to do that. But the good news is we have quality people, applicants that we have hired up, and as of right now, we're hired up except for these 4 new positions. So we have 3 people in the academy right now, and we're going to have a couple more that are going to be going here pretty soon. And it's kind of interesting that candidates try to get the best people we can, and there's a lot of diversity there. We currently have 4 female deputies. We're actually down from 5 at one point. We had 5, and we have 2 Hispanic, Spanish-speaking deputies as well. And one of the interesting things, we have the 3 guys in the academy right now. 2 of them are in the same class together. One of them has a master's degree from the University of Washington in musical performance. And the other guy that's going with him has a GED. He kind of came up, had kind of rough upbringing, and pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And those guys, and I know I was up here a couple weeks ago and actually went out to dinner with them and chatted with them. And they're in competition with each other. They want to be the top academic people at the academy. And right now, the guy with the GED is actually a few points ahead right now. So it's kind of interesting. And I think it's great that we reflect the community, and you don't have to have like the master's degree or even a 4-year degree. We attract people and want people that are capable of doing the job. So we give them the training and tools, and stay out of their way and let them do good work. So we're excited about the future and getting everybody trained up and out on the street. So hopefully a year from now we'll be there and be able to do a lot more things than we're doing now. We're just kind of holding our own and treading water, but we're fighting our way back. A couple other things I want to mention. You may have noticed there's a new 911 center being built out by Lowe's. And that's going to be hopefully open probably in June. It's been a little bit delayed, but that kind of started a few years back. 2017, the voters approved a 0.1% sales tax to fund the 911 center, and that's led now after a few years. They got some money saved up and actually have the building being built, and that's going to be a great improvement for I think the 911 center, to move them out of the basement of the Hall of Justice, where they've been here for, they've actually been in the Hall of Justice, I think, since the late 70s. And down in the basement since the early 80s. So it's kind of depressing down there. There's no lights or anything of that nature, and they do 12-hour shifts. So at least this new facility is going to have some windows and ambient lighting, and hopefully, in addition, brand new backbone of equipment. It's really vital to doing our job. And as part of being sheriff, I'm on the board of the 911 center and all. So that's an exciting thing for law enforcement and for the 911 center to have that new facility. And I'll just, as an aside about the Hall of Justice, if you get a chance to bend the ears of commissioners, the building's coming up here pretty quick. It's going to be 50 years old. It was opened in 1975 and has some serious issues. My office is about 54 degrees this morning when I came in, and that's not unusual. So it needs some help with HVAC, electrical, and plumbing, and that's throughout the building. So that's why it's great. And I know 911, that's one of the reasons they're looking forward to getting out of the center as well, or out of the building as well, because of that. So that's one of the big long-term issues I think the county faces, is in terms of criminal justice, is addressing that. The Hall of Justice is old, it's tired, and the courts have grown. When I started here, we had 5 judges. Now they're up to 8 judges. And they actually qualify for another one as well based on caseload and population. So I know they're looking at that. So if you know any of the commissioners or been there here, you really need to plan for the next generation. I'm probably not going to be around long enough to see it, but we really need to take care and provide for that. access to criminal justice. Another thing we've done came along, it was a citizen suggestion. Guy used to be a paramedic, a guy named Donnie Boltinghouse. I don't know if anybody knows the family there. I knew Donnie, but he was a former paramedic. But he actually was at a poker game, and one of his buddies had a heart attack. And actually, I think Jordan was across the street from your house, I believe. The guy went down and did CPR, and the fire department got there with an AED and was able to save the man's life. And Donnie reached out to me and said, it'd be great if all the deputies had AEDs in their cars. And I said, well, that sounded like a good idea. So we, as of now, we've gotten about 35 AEDs. All our marked patrol cars have those in there. And except for 8, I think we paid for 8 out of our budget. We had some budget surplus here at the end of I think it was the end of 2019 actually. We bought 8. Otherwise, close to 30 of them were funded by grants from various groups, Weyerhaeuser, Burlington Northern, Firehouse Subs, which they have some locations down in Vancouver, and then private citizens too. We got checks in the mail from private citizens to help fund that. So I'm really happy we were able to do that and get those AEDs out there. We've actually had one a save of a lady previously didn't know she had a heart issue. She was mid-30s and had a heart event. Went down, and our deputy got there with the AED and was able to use that to give her a shock and save her life. And the aid crew got there, and she had some surgery and recovered. And so I'm really happy about being able to do that, actually save lives. The last thing I'm going to touch on, this might be a little more lengthy, but am I going too long, Mark, or not? No? Doing all right? No?
I forgot to look at the start time, so
12:20.
We're good.
We got lots of time.
Really? You're just counting Jordan out, or
We have lots of time. You don't.
No, I can be here all day. But anyway. No, it's not. No, I could stay here all day. It'd be nice. So, no, the main thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll bring Jordan in on some of this, is the legislation, the police reform that came about here in our legislative session last year. I know discussion nationwide and all, but I think our state was probably at the forefront of enacting some police reform. And it was, not to get political, but the majority caucus pushed through many police reforms. They kind of cut out law enforcement from the conversation. They had some academics and their theories behind them and what they wanted to do, so they imposed some things on us. One of the main things that came up was the Blake decision, and that started with the Supreme Court. They threw out the felony drug possession charge, and that's had some serious impact on us. Fortunately, I don't know if it's fortunate or not, the legislature was in session, and they took up the issue, and they'd already actually had proposals to legalize hard drugs, similar to what they're doing down in Oregon. But with the Blake decision being declared unconstitutional, they had a chance to fix it, and they didn't restore it to what it was, but they made possession of your hard drugs, your heroin, meth, cocaine, fentanyl, that sort of thing, made it a gross misdemeanor, and that was only after 2 referrals for drug treatment. So instead of getting a felony arrest now, we hand out these cards here. So you get 2 of those, you get 2 free passes on possession of drugs, and on the 3rd one you can be charged with a misdemeanor instead of a felony. So as a result of that, it's really impacted a lot of people in the criminal justice system. It starts with drug possession. They're the same ones out there stealing catalytic converters, breaking into cars, doing all that, and sometimes the only hook you have into them is the drug possession, and that was by and large taken away from us. And since we started doing this, I think there's only been 1 referral locally. I think Kelso has a 3-time guy there. I've suggested we had a little punch card on there for him, but they would probably lose those. And I know, speaking with like our local DOC, the felony probation folks here in town, their caseloads dropped by more than half. So those people that were under supervision, being supervised, having to meet terms, take UAs and that sort of thing, they just got dropped off the caseload completely. And I talked with our drug court coordinator too. Prior to this, they were running about 60 people through drug court, and they'd have about a 50% success rate with that. After this Blake decision came through, it dropped down into the low 20s, so more than 50% drop in people actually going through drug court and taking advantage of that instead of getting a criminal conviction. They're working with the prosecutor. They're kind of expanding the number of crimes that would be qualify if there's some kind of connection to drug activity, and they're back up to about 30 now. But I think, in legislation, a lot of this stuff is, it just didn't take into effect human nature.
people aren't going to seek drug treatment if they don't have to. A lot of these drug users, unless there's a stick, felony conviction hanging over their head, they're not going to take advantage of drug treatment and avail themselves of that. And that seems to be the case. That seems to be what's going on. Along with that, we see, I know in 2019, nationwide, we had about 70,000 overdose deaths. In 2020, it bumped up to about 94,000 overdose deaths that's nationwide. And I know checking locally with our coroner, it's similar here as well. Overdose deaths are up, and it makes sense when you have more people not in treatment, not being held accountable. They're going to be out there. They're going to be doing their drugs and that sort of thing. And I got some stats. Mike Firth's daughter, Julie, she works in our records department, and she's married to our deputy, Brent Harris, and also she got some stats for me, and just don't want to bore you with statistics, but I think it's indicative of some things we see out there, because due to COVID and due to these new laws, less people are in jail. So less people in jail means they're out doing other stuff. So from 2020 to 2021, vehicle prowls are up. We had 197 in 2020, and we had 326 last year. So that's up probably about 50%. The vehicle thefts, that's one of the big ones we see. For me, that's kind of a leading indicator of the criminal activity. In 2020, we had 294 cars stolen in Cowlitz County. That's not quite one a day, but this past year we had 395. So we had over 100 more vehicles stolen this year than the prior year. Trying to see, those are some of the main ones. Drug possession, 2020 we had 590 in 2020, and this year it dropped to 233. And again, that's just the getting this little card here, so not actually going to jail or getting charged with a crime. So the reality for us is there's more bad guys out there doing bad things, and the legislature kind of tied our hands a little bit. One of those is like stolen vehicles and pursuing vehicles. There's some limited number of circumstances where we can actually do that, and the bad guys know that, and we're seeing that quite often now. They won't even stop for us. They'll just keep going and take off. And the cases where we do catch them, it's kind of pretty much catch and release. The judges set low bails, and these folks are out pretty quick. So I think society is less safe based on what the legislature did to us. Several bills. One is House Bill 1310, restricted the police authority. Previously established law for many years. We called it a Terry stop, or a detention of somebody who's suspected of criminal activity. It allows us to detain them, physically restrain them while we determine whether they committed a crime or not. Legislature took that away from us. Said you had to have proof, probable cause they committed a crime, or you could not go hands-on or detain them. They could walk off, run off, and that sort of thing. And that's what we're seeing. There's been some in the media, you've heard about that. I think there was a shooting up at a shopping mall up in Pierce County, and the guy ran off, and the law enforcement up there didn't put a dog out to track because they didn't know who the person was. And I have a disagreement with that, but it created a lot of confusion. A lot of places are hands off on that. One of the other things in that regard too is dealing with people in mental health crisis. Previously it was say a little subjective standard. If they're a risk to themselves, others, or property, or gravely disabled, we could detain them and take them to, in our case, St. John's to get treatment. They raised that bar to what they called an imminent threat to themselves or others. That means like something's going to happen immediately if you don't do something. So that, again, that's created confusion and created a situation where previously we would have taken people to get help, but we've had to walk away. In fact, the law talks about law enforcement leaving if it does not meet that standard. You walk away and leave somebody in mental health crisis. And this makes me realize I don't think people in the legislature, they haven't seen people in mental health crisis or high on drugs or even highly intoxicated. Those people aren't in a position to make choices for themselves, they're not in a position to get help. But they seem to think that you can bring in some social workers and say magic words and they can fix them on the spot. And I don't think that's the case. Again, that goes to understanding human nature and nature of addiction and mental health. And so it's really restricted that what we can do. Some of the other things, just the first of the year, new laws that went into effect has to do with juveniles. Now, whenever we want to question a juvenile about a crime, there's a state toll-free number that we have to put them on the phone so they can talk to a defense attorney. 24 hours a day, talking to a defense attorney. And they cannot say, no, I don't want to talk to them, and actually we're bound by what the defense attorney tells them to do, and then a defense attorney is not going to tell them to talk to us. So essentially it took away our ability to question juveniles on crimes and allow them to confess or clarify some points. So, and they also ramped up the requirement for us to record. Whenever we interview a juvenile, we have to record it. And in some cases, adults as well. It has to be at least audio recorded, in some cases, video recorded as well. So that's something we're dealing with now. The only good thing the legislature did, they did allocate some money to cities and counties to deal with the impacts of some of this legislation. So fortunately for us, the county got $431,000 for legislative impacts, and we're using that to purchase a vehicle-based camera system and body-worn camera. So we've been, in the county, we've had car-based camera systems for the sheriff's office for about 10 years. And we were alone in doing that, except for the state patrol, and they only fully implemented their dash camera system here about 3 years ago. The city police departments have had nothing in that regard, but with the money they got, the cities had, and what we're getting, we're replacing our car systems and also adding body-worn cameras, and all the cities are doing the body-worn cameras alone. But it's going to help us comply with these requirements to record interviews, and also I think it'll help make hopefully the officers safer, and maybe people will behave themselves more knowing they're being recorded, and that's going to be captured. But that's one of the things, we have Jordan Spencer's been tasked with doing that. We hope to get those, they're going to be delivered here in a couple months. It's going to be a while to get those implemented, but that's the nature of the world we're living in, and we're going to be implementing those. And I'll have Jordan here come up here in a minute, and I'll talk about Jordan. He's a Castle Rock native. Castle Rock High School, graduated from St. Martin's University up in Lacey, and he served as a deputy and a sergeant, and as of November 1st, I appointed him to be the chief administrative deputy. So he's one of the 3 appointed administrators that I have. I have an undersheriff, which is Dave Handy, a chief criminal deputy, Troy Brightbill, and then Jordan's stepped up to be the chief administrative deputy, and he oversees our policy and our training, as well as our some of our volunteer groups, the reserves and search and rescue, and oversees our policy. And he has a lot of history in firearms training and continues to do that both professionally and privately. He does that on his own, teaches those, and I think Mark had mentioned he does some things for government entities and also private sector and churches, an active shooter response, what to do if there's an active shooter or gunman thing, and he's developed a training program on that and does that. And I'm going to have him come up now and talk about one of the legislation, some of the things they did for us in terms of equipment. One of them was to take away anything over 50 calibers. 50 caliber that's can be construed as a firearm or uses an explosive charge to discharge that. And some of the items we have previously used they're called less lethal. They're things that aren't going to kill you. Well, one of them I have here is this is a 12 gauge beanbag round that we have. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to put a hurting on you. And that was one of the things that was taken away from us on the legislation, because a 12 gauge shotgun is larger than 50 caliber. And an example of how this created confusion, there's a few prosecutors in the state have said, well, they didn't intend to do that, you can use them. So there's a few agencies that are still using 12 gauge shotguns. And another platform here we're going to show you is a 40 millimeter less lethal device here. It can shoot rubber batons and gas and that sort of thing. But that we've opted to take that off the table as well because it's larger than 50 caliber. They're going into session here next week. We're hoping there's going to be a fix for that. But these are really handy devices to help us, keep us safe. And I think I'll let Jordan come up. He'll show you one of the alternatives that we have here to the something that's not discharged by explosive charge. It's essentially a kind of a variation of a paintball, actually, that we've gone to deal with this, but not as effective. And maybe we'll pass some things around here. Anybody want to start this? I'll throw it. Well, there you go. Don't hurt. I used to take those home and have my kids have fights with them with little beanbags. It's all fun until they break open and you got all these little pellets all over. But that's what we use for that. And Jordan, do you want the mic down there, or you?
Can you hear me if I scream, or do you need the mic? You need the mic. Fair enough. know people.
There you go.
You gotta know your audience, right? Okay. I just want to tell a quick story. I don't know what the timeline is, but I'm going to tell a quick
What
story
is the
just to kind of
timeline?
show you the effect that one of those legislative changes has had on those geniuses up there in Olympia. So we had a swap mission, I want to say maybe 2 months or so after the new legislation took effect. And as Sheriff Thurman alluded to, that legislation was regarding the caliber restrictions of firearms that police could use. And the way it was worded was that it restricted us from using anything over 50 caliber. And I believe their intent was a 50 caliber rifle, which I would agree in law enforcement probably doesn't have a place. But unfortunately, the way it was written, it got rid of our ability to use some of these other less lethal tools. That sock that's being passed around that's fired out of a less lethal 12-gauge shotgun is that caliber, and that is in essence about a 68, 72 caliber projectile. So that negated our ability to use that less lethal device. It also negated our ability to use a 40 millimeter launcher, which is a great tool that we could utilize for de-escalation tactics. So anyway, we had this SWAT mission. Subject assaulted his wife, threatened to kill his wife and his daughter. They were able to get out of the house. We had to surround the house and go through our procedures. He was threatening us, throwing things up the windows at us. And again, this was 2 months or so after the legislation was passed. We could not use these 40 millimeter launchers. We can use to deploy gas. We can use to deploy both CS gas and OC gas, like pepper spray, and it's a launchable device, so we can create distance for ourselves, safer for our deputies and officers to deploy these into a residence and get the individual to come out of the residence because of the exposure to those chemicals. Unfortunately, we didn't have that capability anymore because the legislation, the law, the way it was written, it was taken away from us. We also couldn't use the beanbag launcher because, again, we had 12-gauge rounds that were the same powder consistency, the same type of OC and CS that we could utilize, just a smaller payload. We could still utilize that to launch those, again, at a safe distance for us. We did not have that capability either. Again, this was about 2 months into the legislative change. We actually had to resort to prehistoric ways. We went to the neighbor's house, the surrounding area, and found large rocks in order to break windows out of this residence. And I don't know if you've ever tried to throw a baseball and 60 pounds of kit with the ballistic helmet and the gas mask and everything else on, it is not very accurate. So you've got your professional officers and deputies on a high-risk mission with an individual that's already assaulted family members and made threats to kill those family members. We were resorted to throwing rocks out windows because those tools were taken away from us. And as the sheriff alluded to, again, I don't think that was necessarily the intent, but that's the way that the law was written, and we didn't want to necessarily take any chances and set some of our deputies up for failure. The funny part to me is that they write these laws, the way they're written is to help us, or so we would de-escalate situations, so we would not resort to higher levels of force. But essentially what they did was stranglehold us and only allow us to verbally talk someone down, which we do anyway, or use lethal force against them because we had no less lethal options left. So it's kind of very counterproductive to what they intended to do. So what we've come up with is essentially it's a paintball gun. It's actually a product. It's called Pepper Ball, and it is considered an air launcher. It's not considered a firearm because it uses air. It uses compressed gas to shoot essentially paintball rounds. Now, again, we can get away with this size caliber because it's not classified as a firearm. It's about the same caliber, maybe a little bit smaller. I think they're about 62 caliber are these paintball rounds, or these pepper ball launcher rounds. Well, we can get away with using these because they're not shot out of a firearm, they're shot out of an air projectile, yes. Okay, perfect. I'm just about done. Yeah, time to wrap it up. So that's one of the largest impacts that it's had on us, is kind of restrict our ability to use these less lethal options, and we've had to resort to a less accurate, less precise device. So we're actually having to use 20 or 30 of these paintballs as opposed to one or two of these to gain compliance. And I don't know if you've ever been shot with a paintball gun before at 300 or 400 feet per second, but it'll lose several welts, and it's not nearly as efficient as some of these other devices, the 12 gauge rounds as well. So that's one of the bigger impacts that it's had on us in law enforcement. So it can break the skin, yeah, depending on your distance and how much clothing you have on. Absolutely. Any volunteers? No?
Pat Palmer, I volunteer. Pat.
So the purple and white is an inert powder. It's almost like a baby powder. We'll use that a lot of times as a pain compliance device. These other rounds in here, which are the red and gray rounds, that's the one I'm not passing around. That one is the pepper ball. It's called the Live X round. If you're familiar with the habanero pepper, they're about 300,000 or so units on the Scoville heat, the heat scale. These PAVA, they're called, these pepper ball rounds are about 3 to 4 million units on the Scoville. So the hottest pepper is the Carolina Reaper at about 2 million Scoville heat units. So if you ever cut one or ate one or cut one up and then touched your eyeball, this is about 10 times more potent than those are. So they're effective if we can get the right dosage, the right payload. Any other questions?
Thank you. President Tom?
And while Tom's walking up here, just real quickly, I appreciate the fact that he did switch. It was originally scheduled for the 18th, and more on that later if I have time. I appreciate that. And I also had a note to myself that I left at home, but I wanted to apologize to Brad because I know I introduced you to my wife shortly after you'd been elected as Darren. Darren, who was the previous candidate that had run for office, and he was kind enough not to call me on that. So. On behalf of Longview Pioneer Lions, we have 2 of these. So one for Brad and one for Jordan, who's busy, but maybe he won't shoot me if I give him a mug. There are also Lions applications in there for them.
Well, thank you. President Tom?
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that was interesting. Moving on, we're going to do a quick orientation by Maryland. It says orientation, induction.
Thank you, Tom. And the video screen. I don't know if we'll be able to see us. Oh, you can't even see me. President Tom, fellow Lions and guests, we are going to do a quick induction just because it's an induction, not an orientation, but we have the honor of bringing up 3 new Lions today. I would invite Susan, Clark, and Tom to come forward, please. Does this work out pretty well? We'll do it right over here. You can see. Also need the sponsors to come forward, Ken Botero and Greg Firth, please. Marnie, well, she wasn't listening, but whichever. I looked it up. You're responsible to both of these people.
You look responsible.
I just want to thank you, fellow Lions, for giving me the honor to provide an induction ceremony for these brand new Lions. Membership in Lions Club is a privilege, and you have been invited to join the largest, most active humanitarian service organization in the world, including you've been invited to join Longview Pioneer Lions, just one club, a part of this international organization. Just to give you a brief information about it, we have 1.4 million members worldwide, 48,000 clubs, and over 200 countries and outerlying areas that have clubs, Lions clubs. Lions, all Lions, are dedicated to making a difference in people's lives. And your membership will help make a difference also within your community and worldwide. Lions Club International was founded in 1917, so as you can see, we've been doing service for a very long time. And you will hear throughout your Lions membership years, Melvin Jones, and you'll begin to understand who that person is, but he was the founder of our organization, which began in Chicago. Also, Lions Club, here at our Longview Pioneer Lions, we're almost nearly 100 years old. We're currently 98 years old, and in 2023, we get to celebrate 100 years of service in Longview community and out of the area. I didn't hear it. Oh, Reineke is a charter member. Yay! That's good. Jim Reineke is a past district governor, and so he has spent several years within the club serving not only the community, but other clubs within the district, which you'll also begin to understand. Longview Pioneer Lions Club provides service to its community, not only within, but also worldwide. And you will understand that later as well as you learn about the clubs. Our club projects support the mission of Lions Club International's motto, "We serve." We also have a little candle over here that already went out. That candle represents Helen Keller, who spoke to the Lions Club International Convention in 1925. She challenged the Lions to be knights for the blind and to help stamp out and make it be a crusade for stamping out blindness. And so even today, one of our causes is vision care, vision screening, many other things, also surgeries. So each Lion Club has the responsibility to honor her challenge to us. Lions logo, I wanted to point out quickly, if you'll look at the Lions logo, you'll be receiving a pin that looks just like that logo, and you have two lion heads. When you look to the left, we're looking at our past accomplishments that we have done. And when you look to the right, the lion that's facing to the right is going to be all the accomplishments in the future from to this day forward. So at this point, I'd like to ask you to pledge to our Lions Club. Since you've expressed the desire to affiliate with this club and with Lions Club International, I now ask you to say these things with "I do" or "I will." Do you hereby accept membership in the Longview Pioneer Lions Club? I do. And with Lions Club International, knowing that you are encouraged to participate in functions of the club, will you do that? To the best of your ability, will you abide the Lions Code of Ethics, attend meetings, and contribute your share to the activities of your club, district, and Lions Club International? With this pledge, and by the power vested in me by the Lions Club International, come on, Cindy, you are now officially members of our Longview Pioneer Lions. And so I would ask, Cindy is presenting you with, let's see, what is that called? A temporary badge. Red badge. A red badge, right. Okay. With that badge, you have opportunity to earn a permanent badge, and you have 4 requirements. So I would ask Susan, what are one of those requirements? Do you want to think about it?
Attending board meetings.
Fundraisers.
Fundraisers?
Civil service.
A work party, we could say that, okay. And one more thing that helps tell you about our club leadership structure, and it's called, well, visitation, but a board.
We already did that
Okay. Where did we go here? I just got lost. I would ask that you attend a board meeting. Did you say that one? Okay, so then, yeah. I'm confused. So, sponsors, I would now ask that you present the pin to each one of these members. And do you know which one's which there? And your packet. In the packet, we have a Lions pin. Are they in the packet? Okay. All right, let's pull that out. So while Cindy is doing this, I would ask you, fellow Lions, will you introduce yourself to the new Lion and make them feel welcome? Encourage them to get involved. I know Pioneer Lions does this.
I will.
Yes. Will you be a mentor and provide your members with a Lions orientation event? Will you offer knowledge and understanding about Lions Club International, Multiple District 19, and your local club? Of course. Also, from time to time, these members are going to have questions. And I know, as a testimony, Isla Huster had many, many questions. And because of that, we answered them for you, didn't we? We helped you out, so we all can be a mentor to that new Lion. So Lions, your sponsors, and the rest of our Lions all want to help you become the best you can be in this Lions Club. So in closing, on behalf of the Longview Pioneer Lions, District G, Multiple District 19, and Lions Club International, we welcome you, Susan, Clark, and Tom. And I do think that at this point, we brought you up, but we didn't really introduce them. This is Susan Farquhar. I got close. All right. Clark, and it's Baldwin, and Thomas, or Tom Hughes. We call you Tom. And my understanding is you like to be known that you are the third in your generation. All right. So we're proud to have you as Lions. So at this point, just real quickly, I can give you opportunity to share something about yourself. I'll go down here. You can think about it, Susan.
If you were at the meeting a while ago, I retired from the city of Longview, 37 years in street maintenance and stormwater and snow control. I do not like snow anymore. I'm a beach person, and I'm recently widowed, unfortunately. My wife passed away in September. So, thank you. Yeah, Jim.
Hi, my name is Clark Baldwin. I moved up here about 5 years ago from Newport, Oregon. I was raised in the Grace Harbor area, Hope and Haverty, and I moved up here to be closer to my family.
And I'm Susan Farquhar. I lived most of my life in Longview, about, well, I won't tell you how many years, but graduated RE Long, retired from the school district here in Longview in HR, and looking forward to working with the education program.
Thank you so much for spending the time to join Lions. You're going to love it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Marilyn. So because of the time frame here, we're just gonna move on to some important things that we have for announcements. There will be a board meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at Cascade Title. Leroy, don't go there. You said I could do it. Anyway, so anybody that's on the board, there's a meeting. Also, Marilyn, we can go over yours next week for your convention. Okay? Cindy, do you have something for Zone 1 meeting that you want to?
Where the other mic is.
Here.
So at the end of this month, January 26th, there's going to be a Zone 1 meeting. Good blank. It's going to be here at Longview Eagles. It'll start about 6 o'clock. They're having chicken fried steak, and the dinner will be about $15. And there's a sign-up sheet right here, of course. So sign up if you think you're going to come, so that we have a head count for dinner. And this is also considered a visitation, and it's right here where you all know where it's at. So something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, also, one other important thing is we are looking for a new treasurer for the 2022-2023 year. So, keep in mind, please, if you're interested in it, I mean, I'm really serious, we're, you know, we need to keep on this so we can, yeah, right. Anyway, there are, what? Oh, okay. Steve has some registration forms for the conference, spring conference, and it is May 20 or 13th and 14th. So, what's that? Anybody's interested? So, and it's also, I believe it's online, right?
Yes.
One registration per person.
Okay, you didn't hear that, one registration per person. So if a couple is going, that's 2 registrations. That way he can collect twice as much money from you. Anyway, okay, let's see. Yes, Dina.
I would like the awards committee to be thinking this week. We had a big, consider with a big month, we had a lot going on, and we have talked about people to recognize. So next week we'll have an awards meeting here after the meeting like usual. I just want to put it on everybody's mind to be here, because there's been times when we had like 2 or 3 people. So awards committee, be here next Tuesday. And the other thing is I did look into the luggage lab, and so I'm working on trying to get those guys here. I'm program chair for the month of March, so I think I'll get them in here and talk to them face to face. What do you think?
That's good. That
Okay.
sounds good. We'll discuss more of that next week because of the time. Louis?
I'll get your dollar in a minute, Luke. President Tom Bell, Lions and Gas. Rex called me today, and he wanted me to make an announcement that they're going to take down the Christmas lights next Wednesday, and he wants you to be there at 7 o'clock to help. In the morning at 8 a.m., a week from tomorrow, January the 12th, and then on January the 15th, he wants you there to help take everything back to the shop at 9 o'clock, I assume. So,
Thanks, Louis. Okay, there's a couple awards and a couple letters I have, but I will do those next week. If you don't have time. So, yes, Mr. Parker.
Lion Tom, Phil Lions and guests. Most of you know that Ron isn't here today. Ron's off with us. He had an accident at home. He separated some muscles between his ribs. I asked him if he was going to be at the meeting. He said he could get in the car, but he couldn't get out. And I told him we'd happily yard him out of the car, but he just climbed it off. So just keep him in your thoughts.
Okay, thanks. Whoops. Did we lose it? We there? Okay. So let's just, everybody got the announcements. Sorry about this. This is my first time back and I'm all messed up. So anyway, let's do the...
Let Lloyd do it, he's been doing a great job.
All right, red ticket, are we ready? 391 759. Ken.
Try
is the
again.
winner.
Let's go, Ken. Relay.
Okay, the white ticket, 116 833. You have a winner? I think about Tom to left here.
It's like Jerry.
Why did he donate that to us? Isn't that where the drawing goes?
He's going to the relay to Life Kids.
Oh, okay. That's the white ticket, right? Oh, the red ticket. Okay.
No winner yet.
That thing's going out.
No winner, and Darlene,
Dessert.
dessert. Hey, Darlene.
Hey, Dick. Okay, thank you everyone for the meeting.